Hi, welcome to Journeys in Faith here on this Friday evening on the Anne DeSantis YouTube channel. You might notice that the person seated next to me here is a good friend of mine who's been on the show more than once. And so we're so glad to have back Carlos Solorzano. He is a Catholic author and speaker with Catholic Speakers Organization. And he's a very good friend, both of myself and of my co-host for my other podcast, Sowing Hope, Bill Snyder. Welcome, Carlos. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Yes, yeah, there's always so much to catch up on because,
Yes.
we're both in Catholic ministry. You wrote the wonderful book that I've talked about so many times, I Am His Mother, which is available on Amazon. And you did a great job with that book, but you're also a teacher for so many years and a husband, a father, a catechist. Tell us, just as we begin, like for newcomers, people who
Mhm.
haven't seen some of the other podcasts, a little bit about yourself and anything you'd like to share.
Sure. Oh, I'm a cradle Catholic, born and raised in a devoted Catholic family. My parents were both first generation Mexican Americans born here. My father was a teacher, and he was a language and a theology teacher for many years before he retired. My mother was first a stay at home mom, and then she worked for the city of Carson, which is where I grew up, Carson, California, which is sort of next to Long Beach, California, and the suburban part of Los Angeles. I did not go to Catholic school until high school. That was a decision that my father made for myself and my sister, but it ended up being a good decision because taking those theology classes in high school was the first, sort of the first spark that made me consider teaching theology. Prior to that, I mean, I'm still a musician. I still work professionally, actually, outside of teaching. But my faith life was always there. And I actually have no problem saying a lot of that kept me out of a lot of trouble when it comes to what's common in the arts, which can be a little distracting when it comes to a person of faith. But I started out actually as a music major. I was starting first at El Camino Community College in Torrance, California, where I did earn my associate's degree in music. And when I transferred to Cal State Long Beach, I did study music for another year, and then I ended up changing my major to religious studies, and then would start teaching right after college. And then about 6 years into my teaching career, I went back to school part time and got my master's degree in religious studies, where with an emphasis on New Testament and ancient Christianity. So in my mind, I was going to teach scripture, and I did that for a number of years at the high school level. And long story short, I ended up being moved into morality, where you get to answer all those real tough questions and try to explain the church's teaching in this culture that's really fighting it. And it wasn't too long after that that all of a sudden I was exposed to the theology of the body. And before I knew it, Anna, I was in your town because I was given the opportunity to start going to the Theology of the Body Institute for courses. And after taking 8 trips to Philadelphia and taking 8 courses, and then doing my certification work at home and all my exams, I was also certified through the Theology of the Body Institute. So that led to me doing talks in my diocese, which is now Tucson, Arizona. As I've been out here now since 2006. And I've also been doing talks at conferences. I've obviously done some talks with some of your ministry, and I've been invited to speak both online and in person, both with Catholic Speakers Organization as well as some other Catholic ministries who brought me in to share some of my insights both on theology of the body, and now I'm starting to get into apologetics because of the fact that we as a church are also dealing with secularism. So that's where our plate is full, but we can't ignore all that's on the plate because it's challenging, but we do have the resources and the wisdom to be in that discussion and show the truths of the Catholic faith.
Yeah. Every time you come on the podcast, there's always something new that you share with our audience and with me that I learn. And I should have mentioned at the beginning that your love of music. And I think
Yes.
that's a really important thing for us to also talk about because it's really you're really multifaceted. You're one of those people that you have the interest obviously in your faith, but you're a school teacher teaching Catholic school for how many years now?
This is my 28th year.
Oh, wow. Plus, you're doing a wonderful job. I mean,
Thank you.
I know that you and I have talked about that, and you've learned so much from your students and even, just from the experience of teaching.
Hmm.
But I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about this music aspect of you because I don't think we've really explored that enough on some of our previous podcasts. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with your music career as well?
Sure, you're right. We haven't really talked about that. Well, I grew up. My parents both love music. My father loved Latin jazz, different all kinds of genres. My mother loved the old Motown, and also rhythm was a big part of the music of what we liked. And so I was blessed because I was attracted to drums. And when I wanted to learn to play drum set, my father made me a deal. He said, "I will buy you a drum set if you take lessons." I said, "Sure." I mean, I was all up for learning whatever I could. So I started taking drum lessons formally in third grade, and I did it all through my early college years. I eventually went from private instruction to then studying music at a community college first, which was eye opening because I was always interested in drummers who wrote music as well. They didn't just play drums in their group. So I wanted to be like that. So I remember I started noodling with guitar a little bit when I was in high school. And then when I went to college, I'm suddenly learning how to read, harmonic music, not just drum music. So I'm learning the theory and, learning how to read what they call the SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, um, musical scores. And I also took a guitar class, some vocal classes, jazz theory, counterpoint, and I'm no expert in theory, but I mean, you can hand me a piece of music paper and I know what's going on. I started getting involved with writing music in my 20s, so I like to say I'm fairly decent on acoustic guitar. I play actually at mass every weekend with my wife. My wife's a singer. That's how we met, was music. So I'll get to that later. And I did a lot of performing with her in our 20s. That was the original goal when we were first dating and married. And then once we had kids, I started focusing more on working. So I would do a lot of the side gigs, recording sessions, live shows. Would sometimes start writing music, which I've been lucky enough where some of my music's been featured on television shows around the world. It's called they call it music sync now, but it used to be called music licensing. Everything changes in the industry, and I still do it. I mean, I'm still performing in some of the local clubs here in Tucson, but I've also been expanding into some other genres as well because I guess as you get older, you start getting a little uh, restless about what you don't want to do the same thing over and over. And last year, I actually got involved in performing with musical theater, which was great because a lot of times now they use pre-recorded tracks, but every now and then they hire musicians. And there was someone I knew that was in a play. She played violin, and so she contacted me. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it, and just to do something different." And it was great because the music was amazing, but the songs were challenging to play because I had to read the whole time because there was no way to memorize all the music. And of course, instead of following like your lead singer in a group that you get used to following, I'm up there on stage with multiple singers and they all have their own way of doing things. And I really enjoyed it. What was great about that, and this was kind of a faith thing as well, is I started to introduce my wife to some of these people because I was in about three musicals at one point, and she sang and she likes that kind of stuff. And so I introduced her to the lady who runs one of the theaters, and I kind of jokingly said, my wife sings, kind of hint hint. And she ended up getting a part in Ragtime earlier this year, which was an amazing performance here at Tucson. And she met some amazing people and became really good friends with them. So she started working with them in other places outside of theater. And what's amazing is one of the groups is actually a chamber ensemble, and they'll do a lot of traditional classical pieces, and then the second half of the performance they'll kind of pep it up a little bit with some like spirituals and other upbeat songs. So then of course when that happens, my wife wrote me in and I'm playing percussion on some of it. But the interesting thing about it was there's a couple that runs this particular production company that's running this chamber ensemble, and they're not Catholic, but they're devout Christians. So the way they conduct the group is very healthy and faith filled. And my wife talks a lot about how, well, we always seem to find people that are faith filled that we work with, and that's been one of the refreshing things is we're able to still do our music, but at the same time, we don't really have to compromise our own morality to do that.
Wow, you weren't kidding when you told me at the beginning, before we started the show, that you wanted to share some things about what your wife is doing.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I didn't know exactly what direction that would go in. So I'm happy to hear this great news. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about that.
Yeah.
Now, before we go on the break, I would like to address to the newcomers to the show who haven't met you before
Hmm.
this wonderful book, I Am His Mother. Can you take, a few minutes and just tell us about the book? Because I highly recommend it. And he's talked about it on other podcasts before, but of course we can't miss an opportunity, can we? So
Oh,
please
thank
do
you.
tell us more.
Um, it came on my heart a long time ago. Just sort of, what if Mary had written a memoir, some kind of diary, if you will, of her life with Jesus? And it came about because I was just listening to some Marian songs, watching some really good faith-based films where I felt they did a really good job portraying our Blessed Mother. And I just started writing, and all of a sudden, what came out was this book that is broken up in a few sections. I kind of focused on the fact that she lived with John in Ephesus. So he is the beginning and the end of the book where he talks about what he found. Apparently, this memoir, which of course I'm not saying it actually exists, it's a fictitious sort of artistic liberty I took. And the ending, he kind of finishes it up with what he saw later. But as we're going through the memoir, the first half of it is she's reflecting on everything from the Annunciation all the way to about the finding in the temple when he's about 12 years old. So sort of like a mother sharing her son's story, and of course with her in the back of her mind knowing who he is and what's to come. And then the middle, to break it up a little bit, I chose three figures from the gospel that Christ encountered that obviously they could not see him in the flesh now. So they would go to her because of the fact that she's the closest thing to him that you'd have post ascension to heaven. And I think we've all been in that position before where we were unable to speak to someone, whether they were just unavailable or if they had passed away already. So we would go to the closest person who might know a little bit about the situation. So there were a few little I's and T's that weren't dotted or crossed, if you will. And so they go and speak to her, and she knows more about them than they realize. So she kind of helps dot those I's and cross those T's, if you will. And then the last part of the book, the second half, is Holy Week, and that was a very difficult part to write. I think because my faith and my love for our Blessed Mother, but just the fact that I'm as a parent, I can only imagine what the pain would have been like to go through that. Not just the crucifixion and the passion of crucifixion, but also seeing where he's being rejected, and as every day goes by, you're one step closer to the inevitable. And but just that beauty of seeing her faith and her hope rewarded, because obviously once he was going to rise from the dead, he was going to have that moment with his mother. I mean, the church even talks about that too, where obviously he would have appeared to her as an individual experience because of who she was, and just the selflessness of her too. I mean, obviously, the idea that she still would have done whatever she had to do, which we kind of see that in Acts of the Apostles anyway, but where she's going to continue being that messenger, that person who's going to show us her son. And so I just thought, what if I was able to find a way to deliver that sort of a maternal thing, maternal experience, which is kind of weird, obviously, because I mean, I might be a parent, but I'm a father, I'm not a mother. And I guess I've been blessed in a way because a lot of the women who have read my book have really complimented that like they always say, you nailed it. And I'm like, okay. And of course, when my own mother told me that, I was very pleased, because I was always kind of afraid she was going to say, well, you didn't get this right, or you went too far with this, or whatever. And it was also really important to me, because I know some people are probably wondering, it was very important to me to be faithful to what the church teaches. So in a lot of the sections where there's a new chapter, if there's even a suggestion of scripture on that part, I actually put that at the beginning of the chapter, and I try to keep it as close to both the Bible as well as the traditions we have about Mary in the church.
Yeah, you did an amazing job. And as I keep
Thank you.
repeating, we've talked about it before in other podcasts, but there's a couple things that I want to mention about this book. The one thing I love is the dialogue in the book. The
Mhm,
conversations that you have between, could be between Jesus and Mary or whoever it is.
mhm.
But the other thing that I think is very nice, especially for people like me who are older, is the size of the writing. I mean, you can't see it here. The size of the print is very, very nice. I don't need to wear any kind of reading glasses or anything. It's a nicely large size book. I mean, you can see it next to me here. It's
Mhm.
not a tiny little book. I love the artwork on the front too, by the way.
My brother-in-law did that, so
Oh,
he's
it's
a graphic
beautiful.
artist. Yeah, he's
Look at
amazing.
that. So
Mhm.
pretty. But anyway, it's just a great book. I mean, Carlos, he actually signed my book,
Of course.
and I
You're
love
my
that.
friend.
And I have a little note from him too.
Oh.
But anyway, I can't recommend this book enough. And so go to Amazon and get I Am His Mother. We're in holiday season, it's coming up. So buy the book for a friend of yours, especially a person of faith.
Mhm.
Now, we do have to take a short break just for like a minute or so. We'll be back in just a short bit. So we'll see you in a few. Welcome back to Journeys in Faith on this Friday evening with my friend, Catholic author and speaker with Catholic Speakers Organization, Carlos Solorzano. And during the first half of the show, he talked a little bit about his faith journey. He talked about music and his teaching, catechesis, and also his book, I Am His Mother. Now, I know, Carlos, that you wanted to share a little bit more about the things that your wife is involved with.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about whet our appetite, but please do tell us more because I know that there's some great things going on for her and for you.
Yeah, so we live 15 minutes from it's a place in Tucson called the San Javier Mission. And our development is actually next to the reservation, but the mission is a little ways from where we live. And they have a school, and it was a K through 8 school. And about 2 years ago, it closed. And my wife had made the decision last school year she was going to move on from her previous job. She just wanted a change, and it was a little stressful for her. It was like a lot of work, and she needed a break, and so wanted to do more things for herself and to spend more time with the family. And so, long story short, the diocese approached her, and no one knew that they were actually wanting to reopen this school. And so they're in the midst right now. She's the new principal of the school, but it's not open yet. This is the year of preparation. So she's in the middle of taking care of infrastructure, doing all these other administrative things that I, as a teacher in the educational business, want nothing to do with. I always tell her, better you than me. I'm terrible. I'm sorry. But she's been receiving invites to go to a number of community events and some faith events that have gone on at the mission. And it's interesting because we live close by. We've been there a million times, but these are things that we didn't really know about. And one of my interests before getting into theology of the body was a lot of people call it global Christianity. So I'd study a lot of the different faith expressions around the world, not just in the West, and I love it. But I never really had a chance to really sit in person with some of the Native American customs. And it's been interesting because there's been a lot of stuff that she's learned about they're called the Tohono O'odham people, and a lot of the struggles that are very common on the reservation life that these people have. And yet we've also been had a chance to attend a number of different community events where we've had a chance to meet the people, and she's been promoting the school. She's met a lot of the alumni from the school, and they miss the school, and or you have some parents who want to send their kids there. So they're going to reopen the school next year. They're going to start kindergarten through second grade, just to start, and then year by year they're going to add a grade. So from K to 3, and I'm not sure if they're going to go as high as middle school, but I mean I know that they're looking 3, 4, 5 for sure. And I've really had a good experience when I've had a chance to go to these events with her, because I've gotten to meet the people, seeing how these people practice their faith, attending some of their Catholic devotionals where you have the people doing their indigenous expressions of faith, but then you also have the friars who are there, who are, they come from the Franciscan order, but they're also very open and supportive of the people's traditions. And that's been a really beautiful experience for me, learning a lot about their struggles. It really humbles you because when you go through your own struggles, you always kind of realize there's someone going through more. And also just seeing the beauty in these people when it comes to their faith. And obviously they're always looking for help, so if anyone was interested, it's just called San Javier Mission School, and the Javier is Xavier Mission School, and it's in Tucson, Arizona. But like last week, there was a trunk or treat event at the recreation center, and we were there, and a lot of the people from the parish were there. So we got to talk to them and meet a lot of the kids, and some of the kids are toddler age, so they're looking at maybe going to school there in a couple years. And it's just been a wonderful experience to meet these people. And in some ways, to be honest, it's been a little embarrassing almost, because I live right here, but I just never really went there for these things, and or we just didn't have access to the regular life of these people, because we didn't none of us in my family say were active in the parish. We would just visit the area and sometimes attend mass or just go see the mission, or a lot of times if we had people that visited and they wanted to see Tucson and were interested in some landmarks, well, that's one of the historical landmarks in Tucson. Well, obviously for Catholics it's a lot more than that. So it's been a really interesting few months to meet these people and learn a lot about their culture and their faith traditions.
Good to hear, because it seems to me that you and your wife and your family, you keep active in so many different ways. I mean, your music, the writing,
Mhm.
teaching, family
Yeah.
life. I mean, it's great. And now you're doing this too. So, is
Hmm.
there anything that you want to share with the audience in terms of if they want to learn more about this? Is there some place we could go?
I know that the school has, well, the parish has a website, San Javier Mission in Tucson. I know that the school just started up a Facebook and Instagram site. It's kind of funny because when we go to these events, my wife will sort of shoo me away and get her phone and do like a quick video, selfie video update of what's going on, because they're trying to promote the school. But it's also a place, just if you were to ever visit this area, you're talking about a mission that's it's literally almost 500 years old. It's still an active parish. They still have regular mass. I mean, people do come to visit as tourists, but it is an active parish community, and it's on the reservation. But you can see it from the 19 freeway when you're heading into Tucson or out of Tucson, and it's a place that people from all over the world go to every single day. My wife sees buses come all the time, people from Norway or whatever, because they love to travel and visit these different places. And I would encourage anyone to come out to Tucson and see that, as much as I want to go back to Philadelphia and see all those beautiful East Coast churches.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I thank you for that, like, call to action to the people that are watching. So
Hmm.
please do check it out and Google it, learn more, and go visit. Now, you are a speaker with Catholic Speakers Organization.
Correct.
I know that that's something that you really want to talk about and explain to people what you do. So,
Hmm.
can you take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure that there could be people watching that once they learn about what you do, that they want to
Hmm.
book you to come out.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Well, I mean, I've done talks for middle school, high school, college level, young people, adults. I've done it for, I've led retreats. I've done stuff online. I've done conferences. I mean, whatever it is, I'm very comfortable, talking about whatever topic people want me to speak on. The majority of the talks I do are on theology of the body and or what I guess people sometimes want to hear sexual ethics or something because there's theology of the body tends to create a emotional reaction one way or another, unfortunately. But I mean, obviously, we're talking about church teaching, but the main thing is dealing with the issues that our culture is facing. Somehow in my job as a teacher, when I got into the morality courses, I got thrown into that, and it's nothing that's ever made me uncomfortable. So, but I also like to use a lot of medical and psychological information to not only share to show some of the challenges that we're all dealing with and the consequences of certain behaviors, but also to reinforce church teaching. Because obviously, we're not just a church where it's like sola scriptura, the Bible says that's it. No, we unfold the teaching, and we have a lot of wonderful teachers and apologists out there who will really show how through creation and the way God intended us to be, this is why this is called truth. So that's been a big topic, and a lot of times people will bring up marriage and divorce and annulments, homosexuality, transgenderism, just the cohabitation things, and a lot of the confusion and a lot of the emotional and psychological struggles people are going through because of really falling into the cultural mindset that's not always giving us the full story of what we could face if we go into those behaviors. That, and I've been getting really into apologetics in terms of really talking a lot about secularism and atheism. And a lot of times I think a lot of people feel ill-equipped to deal with it. And sometimes I think with my talks, whether I'm educating or informing people, here's what you really need to know, and or just showing them, look, this is what it really is. Like, for example, one of the things I always like to bring up is that, when people have religious beliefs, they're subjective, which is fine because beliefs, subjective beliefs are part of being human because we have experiences, and that helps form our perceptions of the world around us. Well, atheism is a subjective form of belief. Secularism is a subjective form of belief. Our political beliefs, our cultural beliefs, they're all subjective. So it's like they're not more important or more valid or more credible than your religious beliefs. I mean, even science, as many people like to turn to science for all the answers, well, science can't answer all the questions. Many scientists have openly said, we're not here to answer all the questions. We're only here to speak on things that can be testable and proven. But a lot of stuff, it's on a theoretical level. And I've even heard scientists say if we could even give you the reason for the Big Bang, it would lead to 1,000 more questions. So, no, we're never going to know everything. But sometimes the problem is we have this perception that a certain discipline has all the answers when in fact they don't.
That's well said, and it gives people a good idea of kind of where you're coming from in terms of
Mm-hmm,
being a speaker at their parish or organization. Now,
mm-hmm,
if I'm correct, I think the way that they could book you would be to Google or look up uh, Carlos's name and then
mm-hmm,
Catholic Speakers
mm-hmm.
Organization.
Yeah, I
So if
have a
you just
page. Mm-hmm,
put yeah, all you need to do is just uh, go to that page of Catholic Speakers Organization. I
mm-hmm.
think it is like .com possibly,
I believe so. Yeah,
and
I
then
should know
you
this, huh?
right, and then you could or you can just Google, like, Carlos's name, Carlos Solorzano,
Mm-hmm,
Catholic Speakers Organization, and then it'll take you right to the page,
mm-hmm,
and then you can learn about, how you can book him.
mm-hmm,
Now I'm in Philadelphia, he's out in Arizona, but, like, he'll go anywhere in between, right? I
mm-hmm.
mean,
Absolutely.
you'll visit anywhere, so that's great. Now, we are headed toward the end of the program
Mm-hmm.
already. I can't believe it. It's
That
only a
was
half
quick.
hour show, so that means we gotta have you on again, as I think you've been on so
Sure.
many times. But, what final words do you have for our audience before we end the show?
I am encouraged. Actually, I was sort of taking some time away from ministry for a while for had some number of things to deal with personally and professionally and just kind of getting life together. But I'm also encouraged because while I'm getting back out and doing more again, I've been seeing a lot of people with questions, or there's been a hunger of people who want to know more about their faith, or they're not really of that background and they want to learn more because they're interested maybe in taking their life in a different direction. I'm also encouraged because with my job, I'm seeing a lot of young people who are asking a lot of questions and they're very open to what we have to say. Just the fact that people are willing to dialogue. I think sometimes we have to remember that a lot of the tug of war we see with people of faith and the secularism or whatever, a lot of that's a media uh, narrative, and it's not necessarily true. I mean, you go out and talk to people in the streets, it's not like that. A lot of people really do want to have conversations. Being a musician, I get to meet a lot of different people, different backgrounds, and I've had a lot of great conversations with people who, oh, you're Catholic, and then they find out I'm a theology teacher, and then right away they have questions, and they'll ask me in a very polite and a very curious way, and I try to speak to them in a very respectful way as well, and it's amazing how you see the wheels spinning, and then sometimes they want to come back and they want to talk some more. So don't be afraid of the hunger. Don't be afraid of being curious. Ask your questions, and to the people out there who teach, well, it's our job to answer those questions. So just we all can learn more, and the more we learn, the more confident we are to understand the faith, and then also to share the faith with others and deliver the teachings, and then we all have a better understanding and hopefully a deeper faith life ourselves.
Thank you. So well said. I always enjoy having you on the show
Thank you.
and just being a personal friend and sharing our faith. So, my two calls to action is to get the book, I Am His Mother, it's holiday season coming up, and to go online and Google Catholic Speakers Organization, Carlos Solorzano, so that you can have him come to your church or organization.
Thank
Carlos,
you.
thank you so much again for being a guest on Journeys in Faith.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Look forward to
Thank
doing it again.
Absolutely. And we will see all of you here. We are the first and third Fridays of every month here on the Anne DeSantis YouTube channel. Please do join me again. God bless, and we'll see you then. The St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith was founded in 2015 by the Mercedarian Religious Order with a mission to make pastoral outreach to families in crisis. The friars came together after attending the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia with hopes of creating a foundation which could help those families and individuals who have faced tough times and need to know that the Church cares and is there to help. Since that time when we were founded, the foundation has helped hundreds of families by offering prayer, priestly consultations, podcasts and videos, and programs and events. Whether it is something to do with divorce or separation, trauma, job loss, loss of a loved one, relationship issues, or other crisis, the foundation has seen lives transformed through the services we provide. Pope Francis has referred to our world as a field hospital, where there are a great deal of individuals and families who feel abandoned and they need the special outreach of those who truly care and wish to show the face of God to others. As a foundation, that is what we do every day, and we're grateful to people like you who help to make a difference for families in crisis. Please pray for us and for our mission. Would you consider a one-time or recurring gift? Please go to nonatus.org to donate. Thank you sincerely from all of us at the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith.